The Overwatch 2 PVE story mode vision that was put out at BlizzCon 2019 has officially been canned. We will receive story, but in a different form. Hey and welcome. I'm Hammeh, and in the Overwatch 2 Developer Update broadcast just today, Blizzard and the Overwatch 2 team outlined why Overwatch 2's previous key concepts of PvE and story mode are being shelved, and explained what lore and story vehicles for gameplay for us to enjoy ourselves are going to take their place. In this video, I'll quickly summarise the news, quickly reference an interview done by GameSpot with the developers that came out pretty soon after this stream and video, talk about what's gone, what's confirmed and what we still don't know, where we go from here, and then some of my thoughts. Timecode's in the description if you'd like to skip. Well, in the Overwatch 2 developer update today, Aaron Keller and Jared Noyce came together to talk about the direction of Overwatch 2 going forward, as well as a roadmap for the next few seasons. Now, we did get a roadmap for 5, 6 and 7 season-wise. TLDR, we are going to be getting some story elements in the form of story missions, quote-unquote, as well as a chunk of cinematics and more in Season 6. Now, in the current pace of things, that's going to be 9 weeks or so a season, how we've been working right now, meaning that Season 6 is probably going to be August to mid-August, and if that is our story mode event, release season, then I'm wondering if we're going to have anything for Overwatch when it comes to BlizzCon 2023, if it's in person again, back in Anaheim. Now, it feels like a cycle has gone around. I was very fortunate in 2019 to be invited by Blizzard to BlizzCon 2019, and I saw the announcement of Overwatch 2 with 0 hour, with all of the hype for all of the new gameplay, and I got to play Rio as it was at that time. I got to sit down at a computer, pick some talents for various heroes that existed then for that mode. And here is some gameplay in the background of me playing it. We weren't allowed to capture directly from the PCs, we had to film over shoulder. In the developer update, which I think you should watch, I'll link it in the description, you can watch it after, I'll play a little clip here, but Aaron and Jared basically described how as they started working on what Overwatch 2's vision used to be, then they took more and more focus off of the live game. Now, this is a story and narrative and probably a truth that we've heard before. It's been said to us over the past 1.5 to 2 years, particularly since Overwatch 2 was announced as being free to play, and particularly since things slowly started ramping up towards Overwatch 2's release at the beginning of 2022. Just earlier today on Twitter, I had been thinking about making a different video. I had been reflecting on pretty much the last 3 years of Overwatch 2's communications and how the Overwatch team had talked to the community since BlizzCon 2019, right through Overwatch 2 launch. My feeling stepping away from it and watching back several hours and reading several thousand words of blogs and just watching loads and loads of materials was that expectations were very, very slowly over a period of time being taken away from the fact that Overwatch 2's 2019 PvE story mode vision and gameplay and all of those trailers, expectations were slowly and softly being set otherwise, and the focus was being taken away from what had previously been outlined. I felt that something like this would probably be coming, if not in this roadmap, then certainly at some point before BlizzCon 2023, if indeed that was going to be a time when PvE would be launched. In the dev update, Aaron and Jared talk basically of as the focus was taken away from kind of updating the live service, and as, you know, quite rightly, we as players felt that the game was getting a bit quiet, as the announcement was actually made after Echo that the team was sort of hankering down to focus on Overwatch 2, then the updates went a bit quiet. The team decided at some point that they'd probably created a scope of a project that they'd either deliver on in too long a period of time to leave the live service, the existing game, without significant updates, or they deliver a rushed, as it were, kind of product or finished game that they felt wouldn't meet their own or indeed the standard of Blizzard quality and expectations. This is directly cited in the video. So that is it. Talent trees gone. All of the content that we've seen in those previous trailers that I've been playing over the top of here has gone in terms of talent trees and, as Jared put it, the long-term power progression. So it seems that from what was made for Overwatch 2 PvE, it's been split down into bits, and we're going to get it in bits rather than a single release of content. The team want to make quote-unquote co-op gameplay and experiences, part of the live roadmap in general, so that we can experience it more often and with more variety. So this leads to Season 6, having a look at this roadmap. We're going to get a story-based event. There's going to be a new set of missions. Let's see what that entails. There's going to be a new story arc for Overwatch. There's lots of cinematic content. In Season 5, we're finally going to get the Sojourn cinematic with Murphy, which many people will be keen to see some things and croissants with. In Season 6, we are going to see these story missions. We're going to see what they are. And in future, the team in the update mentioned more co-op features, some canon and some not. Now, this, I think, is going to be limited time events. We have seen Battle for Olympus, we've seen Star Watch, obviously we've seen some tweaks to Junkenstein, and indeed, in the GameSpot interview, where Aaron and Jared are talking to GameSpot and going into a bit more detail. This interview was done before this whole announcement and things this evening. There's a few more details and a few more bits around the edges. Aaron actually gives the detail that the pivot away from the 2019 PVE story mode experience was kind of about a year and a half ago. That would put it at the beginning of 2022, leading whatever the team was focusing on in terms of the Overwatch 2 free-to-play and similar launch being a crunch of 6 months between early 2022 and June 2022, which is when I believe Overwatch 2 was finally publicly been announced as free-to-play, although rumours of Overwatch 2 going free-to-play had been circling certainly around the community for a lot longer than that, probably 6 months before, if I recall correctly. So we are still getting some story and lore content. It will most likely be in the form of these story missions, of these co-op experiences that we're going to see from Season 6, probably August or so onwards. And of course, all of the content that was originally made for the sort of singular experience that was going to be Overwatch 2 PvE, or so we thought, is still there. So I actually imagine if you're a lore and story fan, then there's going to be quite a lot of lore and story content. We're just going to get it over a longer period of time. My thoughts on that I'll save for the end. A few things that we still don't really know, I'll just emphasize. I was going to say we don't really know cost, but the way that roadmap is presented makes me think that you're going to have a gargantuan Season 6 and you just play Battle Pass to access. So that's kind of not the make good, but the way of saying, right, we're going to have a hero and this story content in Season 6. Then you can see in Season 7 that there's another hero. Now, when Overwatch 2 launched, they said that they were going to do a sort of accelerated hero cadence in the seasons, and then they were going to drop the hero cadence to being lower. Suddenly, with this announcement, it's speeded up again. So from all of the content that we've seen in dev updates, in release trailers, we know that there are a huge chunk of maps that have been indeed designed and got quite far along, if not completed, for the PvE experience. I still expect these are going to be the story missions along with the cinematics that accompanied them, just some kind of decoupling of the progression and the talent systems. The hero missions, as they used to be called, the kind of replayable aspects and elements that meant that you could actually level up your hero to get into these juicy talent trees that used to exist. So where do we go from here? Well, Season 5 we can see in terms of roadmap has a new limited time event. We have the Sojourn Cinematic Summer Games comes back. There's going to be a little mini comp season, and of course On Fire is back, which to be fair is the community being listened to in terms of reintroducing things back into the game. We then have super big chunky Season 6 with story missions. Let's see how many missions and what they are. A support hero, Flashpoint, of course that's a new game mode, and I think there's a couple of maps coming with that. Hero Mastery, I think that's been described as potentially a way of getting stuck into heroes, kind of like little hero challenges as far as I'm aware. And then of course a firing range, I think that's probably going to be something like a training range in terms of targets and things. In terms of like a challenge, I have no better way to describe it, but think of the existing Valorant firing range if you play that game. Overwatch Anniversary has moved a few months in the year, so the anniversary is now no longer in May, as it used to be back when I remember streaming for Overwatch's first anniversary from Krefeld in Germany. Thank you, European Overwatch and Blizzard team, as it were, then back in, I think it was 2017, when Overwatch launched in 2016. So now we have an Overwatch anniversary that's been moved to August, I believe. And there is cool stuff in Season 7 towards the end of this year. We have a new tank hero, a new limited time mode, and I think in terms of the co-op experiences that were talked about in the dev update, this is what we're going to see more of. New control map, winter event, the Hero Mastery missions, but a multiplayer version, Hero reworks, and then of course cinematics. I want to shout out the Lore Codex, both from the developer update video and also the interview on GameSpot, as well as the Overwatch 2 narrative team tweeting on Twitter. This is going to be a way that you can get stuck more into the Overwatch story experience in-game. I can't wait to find out what that's all about, and maybe, just maybe, that's a way of delivering us some lore and some story in yet another way on top of all of the different ways as well. So, there we go. A lot to digest there. I'm going to round off with some final thoughts. Now, since the pivot of Overwatch 2 to free-to-play, in the middle of 2022 before its release, although I think obviously that was decided way before, and more commitment to what is frequently referred to in dev updates as the live service, the live game. The entire vision, I think, of Overwatch 2 PVE story mode from 2019 was in jeopardy at best. I mean, I literally had read, consumed hours of developer content, thinking of making a video over the last few weeks, and then of course realised that the previously sort of teased on Twitter mid-May roadmap update was probably due, and suddenly thought that all of that work in true Hammeh fashion, taking too long to make a video and then rushing it at the last minute would have been folly today. Turns out that was the correct thing not to do, and that waiting and seeing what happened was indeed the right thing to do, hence why I'm making this video for you now. What I would say is that, being realistic, this decision was made a long time ago. In the GameSpot interview, Aaron Keller said that it was probably early 2022. I know that with people working very, very hard and long hours, things can be swung in a particularly quick period of time. Getting from a place where they still thought that Overwatch 2 was going to release in the 2019 iteration in early 2022, maybe the decision was being made probably in late 2021, and it was only finalised in early 2022 perhaps. I don't know if you can pivot from an entirely different project to what we have seen for Overwatch 2 in 6 to 8 months. Maybe you can. I'm no expert on game development. Game dev is hard. And look, honestly, if you look at... I play World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft, by the way, has been absolutely excellent. Like Blizzard have been nailing that, but that's a subscription-based model where people pay per month for the game, and that's been going like that way for 15 years. But Dragonflight has been great. It's been very player-centric. Now, in an MMO, Blizzard have enough challenges with I think it's 13 odd classes, so you can play like 13 odd different classes. Let's broadly substitute a class in an MMO for a hero. In Overwatch, we saw in the original visions that Overwatch 2 heroes were trying to have like 2 or 3 talent trees each. In World of Warcraft, it's hard enough making things fresh and keeping things balanced for, I think, 13 classes, and then some of them have 2 talent trees, some of them have 3. So let's say 30 to 33 total talent trees. So if that's 13 classes and 33 talent trees, in Overwatch 2, you've got, 37 heroes, and they were trying to go for 2 or 3 talent trees for all of those. So you kind of like triple the amount of work that you're doing, and this is not a subscription MMO. So there's a funding issue, there's a work issue. I'm no game development expert, but that seemed to be a lot of work, and indeed that's one thing that the devs cited in the update today, and indeed in the interview with GameSpot, which I'll link as well. You should check that out. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video on it too. So my thoughts, not too different to my tweet this morning. Not hugely surprised. Doesn't mean I'm not disappointed. I am. There are so many cool ways this could have gone. It seems that both in terms of the vague tone, the expectation setting, and the messaging, to put too fine a point it, from Blizzard in their community updates and dev updates and similar, things have been moving this way for a while. And indeed, if the decision was made to start going in a different direction, and the decision was made to abandon hero talents and things, who knows when that was made. If the decision was made to pivot Overwatch 2 to PVE as of early 2022, then I'm guessing that the decision for PVE to take a different direction was kind of hand in hand with that, as seems to have been outlined in the various interviews as well. One final thing before we go. For me, actually, to be honest with you, if it wasn't sort of obvious before, for me, actually, the release of Ramatra was kind of the final sort of sign that Overwatch 2's original PVE in one chunk just wasn't going to happen. And like, this is because you look at Ramatra, you look at his story, the quality of his voice work, all of the stuff and media that's been around him, the fact that he was teased since the end of Blimming Storm Rising, as an archives type mode. He's such a key figure in what Overwatch 2's story would have been, that to have him as a hero, and don't get me wrong, I love the animated origin stories, but to have him without a cinematic, when we've been seeing like teased bits of Sojourn cinematic, to have the big bad of Overwatch 2 not having a cinematic with his release and just an origin story felt like he was being cut out of whatever Overwatch 2's PVE had previously been anticipated to be and dropped in as a separate hero release to go with this Blizzard philosophy. And indeed it's mentioned of making sure that they could supply people more content more often, keep the game vibrant and feeling alive and going, rather than saving it up, as they said in the dev update, for what they said would be like a one-off release. Now, depending on how you feel, whether you enjoy your games as a service, whether you enjoy little and often, whether you enjoy dipping out and dipping in of online, always-on games with seasons, whether you like sitting down and playing a single-player experience, those are two different kinds of enjoying games. And Overwatch 2, and indeed one can argue the original Overwatch, sat on the barrier between these two different forms of game design, these two different forms of storytelling at a time when Fortnite and Apex Legends pushed always-on service, content delivery and storytelling in one direction, and Overwatch sat on the cusp of two different directions, two different forks in the road, and decided to try and go one, and then has ended up going the other. So to conclude, believe it or not, I've already been accused on Twitter of immense amounts of cope in spite of my predictions. I've been labelled a Cassandra on Twitter. I hope I don't always come with predictions of doom. But I'm still optimistic that there will be a fun experience. Like, the Overwatch 2 narrative team and team do care. And this is a horrible thing for them to have to announce. No one has wanted to do this on that team. You never want to see your hard work of years and years be sort of canned. And this seems to be a reality in game development for many, many developers across studios and games, wherever you are and what you're doing. So look, I feel sympathy. I feel sympathy. I'm sad, I'm disappointed, but I feel sympathy and I have some understanding. Sympathy, if not empathy, as I'm not a game developer, and probably the vast majority of us aren't, I would probably say, who are playing Overwatch 2. That said, I feel that something fun can be made, probably is made. I love some of the work that the narrative team have been doing since Overwatch 2, that you have a team who is engaged and who cares and who likes to have fun. And with Overwatch Unclassified, the sort of the lore Bible, as it were, that's been delayed and hopefully is finally coming out later this year. Let's see what that brings too. Let's see what story missions bring in Season 6, and let's take it from there, to be honest with you. There is going to be Overwatch lore and story in various forms, aplenty if you like that kind of thing, and if you're watching this channel, you probably do, or probably have at some point in the past. It's coming. It's just not in the form that we thought. Rest in pieces, Overwatch 2's previous vision of PvE and story mode. As for what comes next, let's see. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you like this video, throw a like, subscribe and comment below with which voice lines and interactions you enjoyed most. If you want to discover more about Overwatch lore, the world and universe, everything behind the characters, see my lore, interactions, voice lines and more videos here for the last 6 years plus of Overwatch and now Overwatch 2. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.